But I have found that it's more fulfilling from a teaching standpoint and also from a financial standpoint to do things on your own. And the thing about yoga studios, and this is just a fact, they're only going to pay you a certain amount. And at some point, if you want to make this a living and you want to, sustain this living, you have to diversify your offerings.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and listening each week. And if you are a new listener, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad you clicked on today's episode. The Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast started about a year and a half ago because I wanted to interview full-time yoga teachers from across the world and share their journey, their unique journey of how they made it happen. It's not easy being a full-time yoga teacher, and I wish I had this kind of podcast to listen to when I was a new yoga teacher starting out my journey of trying to become a full-time yoga teacher. Now I've been teaching yoga as my full-time career for about 10 years, and I learned a lot, but I think I would have really appreciated some kind of resources just like this, where I get to hear from other full-time yoga teachers who's been doing this as long as I have, or people who's been doing this longer than me, and how they made it work. Everyone's path is different, and I think that's what makes being a full-time yoga teacher so fun and unique, and also can be challenging because we don't have a one path to follow. We kind of have to create our own path. And that's kind of what I want to highlight in this Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. Before we get started on today's episode, I have one announcement. Well, I have two announcements, let's say. I have a retreat coming up really soon, next month in July, from July 12th through the 19th. I'm leading a retreat in Nicaragua called Align with Purpose, Ethical Yoga Retreat. And it is a yoga retreat where we'll practice yoga twice a day in a beautiful secluded beaches in northern Nicaragua. It is off the beaten path, and I know for sure you're going to love it when you get there. It's a great place to kind of unplug and take a break from your busy life. Why it's called Ethical Yoga Retreat is because I am partnering with two nonprofit organizations that work locally in that community we are visiting. And part of the money you pay for the retreat goes directly to donating to that nonprofit organizations. Some of the activities that's been planned for the week that we are there include going to volunteer at these organizations. So I am hoping to create an experience where we actually get to meet the locals and get to know and have conversation with people who live there and really appreciate their culture, the land, and learn as much from them as much as we're coming in to enjoy their home. So if you have any questions about this retreat, I'll put the link on the show notes for you to go check it out. I have one room left, and that room can be for a single person, private room all to yourself, or it can be shared between two people. There are two beds in there. So you get to decide whether you want it alone for yourself or you want it to share with your best friend or your partner. So check out the link on the bio if you're interested. I still have one room left. Next announcement is that in August, I will be teaching a accessible yoga training. It's a 2 days training. We'll meet for 2 Saturdays in August. And this is for yoga teachers, and it's actually part of the 300-hour teacher training program for Raw Yoga in Irvine. But you don't have to be part of their 300-hour teacher training to join this training. So if you are a yoga teacher who's interested in learning how to teach yoga in more accessible way using different props and really getting creative with how we offer yoga poses, and not just poses but also the essence of yoga. So if you're interested in accessible yoga training, I'll put the link on the show notes for that as well. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me. All right, so let's get started on today's episode. For today's episode, I have such an exciting guest. I interviewed Giana and Bradshaw from Kaya Yoga School. You probably have seen some of the funny reels that Bradshaw makes on Instagram, or maybe you have listened to podcasts called Funny Things About Yoga. I love their podcast. I listen to it every week, and I also love following them on Instagram. Kaya Yoga School stands for Come As You Are, and they are truly that. They are unapologetically themselves as a yoga teacher, and they really try to be true to who they are and offer yoga as well as bring humor into the yoga world, which I think we need. So I hope you enjoy the conversation I had with them. We got to talk a lot about being a full-time yoga teachers, and they shared a lot of great advices on this conversation. So I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Giana and Bradshaw, and I will speak to you on the other side.
Thank you so much, Giana and Bradshaw, for coming on to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I've been listening to your podcast for a long time, and I definitely follow both of you on Instagram, and it's been really, I always love listening to you to have conversation on a podcast, and a lot of conversation you have sounds so relevant to us full-time yoga teachers. So I'm really excited to hear about your journey of how you got to be a full-time yoga teacher. Maybe Bradshaw, would you like to start with what brought you to decide to take your 200-hour teacher training? And I know you said that you became a full-time right away. So what kind of prompted you to that?
I was very young. I was making no money. So it's easy to make no money when you're making no money already. I didn't come from a corporate job or anything like that. I worked at the Apple store for a little bit. I went to college for advertising. I don't really know what I learned there, but I learned something. And then I started practicing yoga, and I was like, I had a very active background as a child in gymnastics and so forth, diving, swimming. And so the physicality of the practice came quite naturally to me. And I was like, I can do this. This is something I could do. And so I signed up for the training very quickly after practicing for about a year, and then started teaching right away. And I've kind of been teaching all over the city for over a decade now. So it was kind of a quick role for me, which is different than Giana. Giana's story more elongated prior to teacher training.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Giana? What kind of brought you to teacher training, and what was your journey like to become a full-time teacher?
Yeah, I actually didn't want to be a yoga teacher, so I just took the training to deepen my practice and learn more because I was just really into yoga. And from there, I eventually started subbing a little bit here and there. And then after subbing, I just realized I liked it and I wanted to do it, I guess part-time. And it just quickly built. So, throughout my time, I've gone in and out of teaching full-time and part-time. And even when I was part-time, I realized that I was teaching more than some people. Like my part-time schedule was like working 20 hours in a different job and then teaching 12 classes a week. So on top of that. So when I quit the other job and just relied solely on teaching, then I went to like 20 plus classes a week. And now I'm going back to that, 10 to 12 number and just trying to diversify and find balance the other way. But yeah, it wasn't my goal to teach, and here I am. I don't know. I really don't know how that happened. Yeah.
I think that Giana and I also are at this time, like in our careers, when we talk about full time, what that means, what that doesn't mean, and how many classes that is. But Giana and I also, we have we lead teacher trainings, we lead retreats. And so that's a lot of where our time for full time business goes. Not just teaching public yoga classes, which we did for many years, but she and I are in the process of, shifting and kind of changing how we make money and how we move in the yoga world.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like many, like senior teachers that I look up to, like I know Jason Crandall's both of your teachers, and Annie Carpenter's my main teacher. And I think, Giana, you've taken her class in San Francisco.
Yeah, she teaches on Sundays when she's in town at home yoga studio. So, and she also teaches in Oakland, but I don't really go out that way. So I'm lucky to be able to catch her now and then here in the city.
Yeah. How did you like her class?
Honestly, it was a moment that like I think I've built up in my mind for so long. And then I was like, oh, here it is. So, I think for me and in my body, I've gotten to a point where I've stretched so much that I need a little bit more like engagement. And while she is absolutely one of a kind, so talented, and could like literally read anyone for filth, like she just came over, bing, bam, boom, fixed my postures, all of that. I just like my body wants to strengthen more than it does do a lot of stretchy stuff.
I wanted to go back to it. I feel like a lot of teachers that like are been teaching for decades, I have seen them transition obviously away from not as many group classes, because I feel like teaching so many classes aren't sustainable when we are teaching 20, 30 classes a week. So I do see a lot of teachers and talk to teachers, it's kind of transitioning to retreats or trainings or workshops or having kind of online presence. So I know you too said that you're trying to transition away from teaching not as many group classes and more into your business of teacher trainings and retreats. How are you finding balance now with, schedule of your group classes that you teach, the public classes, and building and running your business? How do you find time or balance that?
I think that we are still in the process of figuring that out, to be honest. It's not an easy task, but I have found that it's more fulfilling from a teaching standpoint and also from a financial standpoint to do things on your own. And the thing about yoga studios, and this is just a fact, they're only going to pay you a certain amount. And at some point, if you want to make this a living and you want to, sustain this living, you have to diversify your offerings. And that is definitely something that we learned from Jason and something that Giana and I really have taken into consideration. I think that there's some, like, for example, it's funny that we're talking about this now. I've been teaching at a club for many, many years, and a fitness club. And I've taught many classes there a week for many, many years, over a decade. And I'm just in the process of getting rid of those classes. And I was telling Giana today, there's this sadness because I've been there for so long, but there's also this like, okay, well, I have to keep growing. And I do believe that as full-time teachers and as entrepreneurs, sometimes you need to close doors when it's run its limit. Like when you've had enough time there. And I think it's important to know when to step away and venture into new things. So for me, I think the answer is it's still a challenge, and it's something that we're constantly discussing and trying to figure out. But I do believe that right now, getting rid of more public classes has given me more opportunity to energetically put more time into Kaya Yoga School with Giana and run trainings and retreats.
Yeah. What about you, Giana?
The original question just about balancing everything, was that okay? Yeah, I'm like, wait, my mind went on a tangent while he was talking. Honestly, it's still something I'm figuring out. I want to echo some of the sentiments Bradshaw just shared. And as he was talking, where my mind was going, it's like, I wonder if I could do this. I wonder if I could do that. But we just recently had a couple of episodes on like stacking our schedule in a certain way. And I think this is like helping me create more time to like dedicate a day just to like do all the admin for the other stuff, but also just to take time for myself, because I feel like I'm juggling so much. And for a really long time, I didn't even have a day off. So for me, an important part of finding balance is to like create the schedule that works well, where I can be out in the studio world teaching my public classes, but also have time for me, have time for all of our independent business stuff. And it's a lot. So just finding that line is something that it'll ebb and flow as I go.
Yeah, I can totally relate to, I have a tendency to say yes to too many things or have a lot of classes on my schedule, and I get really like sentimental, kind of like what Bradshaw said, and I have a really hard time like, oh, I need to get rid of something in my schedule so I have more time to breathe, but I get sentimental about the classes that I have, and I feel like I have hard time letting those classes go. So I completely relate, but sometimes I feel like we just can't do it all. There's just not enough time in a day. And also, like you said, there's a cap to teaching group classes. We just can't keep teaching more and more. So that we have to kind of get creative with how else we make our own different streams of income, diversifying. But I do think it's important to maybe keep a few or handful of group classes so we can keep like meeting new people or new students and having kind of that exposure. Would your weekly schedule look like if it was your like most ideal schedule?
We were just talking about this on our latest episode of the podcast, which if you're listening to this right now, you'll have to scroll back through our funny thing about yoga archives, but it's called Stack That Schedule, Baby. And after we talked about how we designed our schedules right now, we then went on to say what our ideal schedule is. And so, oh, there he is. But I was telling her about our latest episode and how we just talked about this, like what our ideal schedule would be. And for me, it's like teaching 1 weekday night, 1 weekday day, and then like a weekend morning. So just like to have a pulse on some of the different class times. And then filling up my schedule with other things like 4 retreats a year, a training, and then, just random workshops and events. And I know Bradshaw has really been into like speaking things into existence. So we've been like really trying to put that out there in the universe. So Bradshaw, what's your ideal schedule?
I would teach Tuesday night, which I already have at 4:30 and 6. I would keep that. And then I would teach probably like a 9 o'clock or a 10 o'clock on a Friday. And then I would teach like 2 classes on Saturday. That would be like my idea public schedule. And then I would do retreats, trainings. And then I also, Giana and I have different skills and different interests. And Giana is really interested, which I am too, but her passion lies within like teaching teachers. And I really enjoy making content online, and I would love to still make and create wellness, yoga, content online. That would be more of the direction that I would like to go instead of teaching so many public classes. I just think that it's inevitable at some point you burn out and the quality of what you're providing is not great. And I think that Giana and I both have been in that spot, and it's a very hard spot to get out of. And sometimes it's a hard spot to even realize how burnt out you actually are until you stop.
It's so true.
And
you're just running on adrenaline.
Yeah, you're just like, you're running on adrenaline, or you're just kind of like, going fast track to the things that you've done 1,000 times. That also, then your teaching becomes stagnant. Your passion for teaching becomes stagnant. It could be a really, really rough road. And then to like hop back on the horse and figure out how you want to approach it again is like sometimes starting from scratch. It's not an easy job. We both love our job, but as well, this is not, teaching full-time is not what people perceive it to be on Instagram.
Yeah,
definitely. Agree with that.
And when you feel burnt out, what are some things that you do for yourself to come out of that burnout? Or when you're feeling really, maybe you're going through a funk of not feeling so inspired when you're teaching, what are some things that you have done in the past that helped you come out of that?
One is taking off more than 1 day in a row, having more than just 24 hours off. I think 48 hours is really nice. That's what I have in my schedule right now, and I don't think I'll ever go back. And really setting boundaries. I will not sub on those days. So Sundays and Mondays, I do not sub. People ask me if I'll pick up a class, I won't. And I'm very strict. Unless Giana and I are doing something related to the podcast or with work, I can do at my house. But committing to actual rest and restore. And when I talk about rest and restore, I'm not talking about like for many, many years, I thought my rest and restore was like going out, being social, having drinks and being like, I'm not teaching, I can go have a good time. But now it's like, I need to rest. I need to work out. I need to meditate. I need to eat well. It requires a multitude of things to take care of yourself. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And also learning when to say no. Like at some point, you just have to be able to say, because a lot of people will, especially in the teaching world, it's a great opportunity. It's like, I don't need opportunity. I need money. I need to make a living. So if you're able to pay me for this opportunity, I'll take it. But if you're just saying it's an opportunity and you're not going to pay me well, this is, it's not going to work out for me. But I'm also, as Giana can maybe speak to a little bit more, very blunt. That's how I operate. I'm very direct. I don't like a lot of bullshit. I would much rather just say what I want and go there. And I think that has a lot to do with Giana and I talk about this on the podcast all the time as well. Even though I'm a gay man, I'm still a man. And I think it's easier for me to ask for what I want because of just the patriarchy and the culture that we live in. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but I hope it helps.
No,
I
that
also
was
just
good.
can I just add one thing to that? Because I think I've burnt out. I burnt myself out in the past. And I think that, like, of course, there's no one size fits all to recover from burnout. And I think also, like, I don't want to use the term loosely because I think sometimes people can just be like fatigued with their week and like they're like, oh, I'm feeling burnt out. But I feel like true burnout takes a really long time. It takes more than just, 2 days off in a row. Like it's so much more about what you can do to like just better take care of yourself. And Bradshaw just named a lot of different ways that you can take care of yourself. But I think like Bradshaw was getting to, like it has, I think, like deep, what am I trying to say? Like a deep nervous system reset is required. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to do, yoga nidra today and I'm going to get back to my grind tomorrow. I just feel like it could take months. And for me, I feel like it's been taking years and has become like a vicious cycle almost of like renegotiating boundaries and renegotiating my time and my schedule and what I feel like is cup filling versus cup draining. And so I just want to put it out there if anyone else is like, burning out, like there's just it's not as sometimes as simple as just changing your schedule.
Yeah.
I think it's not only as simple as changing your schedule, Giana, it's also not like do more yoga. Like sometimes you need to step away. You need to step away from yoga. I couldn't agree with you more, Giana, when you said it's like more than 2 days. I think I was like referencing more just like weekly maintenance, of
exactly.
your mental wealth and well-being. But like when Giana's right, like when you feel that kind of burnout, and Giana, I know what that feels like, and I know what Giana has felt like. It's like you need time away.
Yeah.
You need time away. You need time away from teaching, from community.
Yeah. Do you remember when you used to take a whole month off, like before pandemic, you used to take 1 month off every year?
Yeah. I would take a lot of time off. Yeah. Teaching like fucking 22 classes a week. I mean, it was like, there were points where I literally thought I was going crazy. I was like, this is insane because this is a hustle culture and like the yoga world, which is it's so anti what yoga should be, but it becomes this just like, well, they're teaching there. Should I be teaching there? How much money are they making? It can consume your entire mind. And it can become the complete opposite of why you started teaching and why you started practicing, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah. And Giana, is there any boundary for you that you have set of like, I don't work on these days or I don't work after this time or anything like that, similar to like what Bradshaw shared, but do you have your
for
kind
sure.
of boundary that you don't cross?
Yeah, I used to teach every single class format. And now I'm like, when I just reference like what's cup filling, what's not, I'm like, I don't teach hot yoga anymore. I don't teach power anymore. I'm like, I just won't. I gave up these classes that like don't resonate. Like I'm not going to teach the sculpt class. Like that for me, I like very hardly dabbled in it. And I also dabbled in teaching bar, which is totally different format, but it was at our yoga studio. And I was like collecting these certifications and filling up the schedule. I'm like, okay, this is not me. Like, I'm just like, I'm passionate about yoga. I'm passionate about this specific style of yoga. And that's all I want to say yes to. And so now I've just moved to San Francisco recently. So I've had this opportunity to like build my schedule from scratch. And I'm just being really intentional about it because, for a really long time, it was the same way where I just didn't want to let things go. And so it was hard for me to give up classes or to say no. And I almost never made a schedule change that was outside of moving. Once I committed to something, I committed to it and that was my thing. And unless I moved, that was it. So, yeah.
And I feel like I also used to teach like yoga with weights or yoga laddis or these I used to even teach spin class in the very beginning of my teaching career because I needed to teach as many of whatever I could to make enough money to live here in LA. And, and I, cleaned the studio. I worked the front desk, like anything I could to be a full-time teacher. But once I became more experienced, I was able to kind of, okay, now I'm going to get rid of the classes that's not really filling my cup. Kind of like what you said, Giana, of like, I'm going to get rid of strength class. I'm going to get rid of yoga Pilates. And now I just teach yoga, which is what I love. But this brings me to the, the topic of, I know, Bradshaw, you made a really funny reels about all these hybrid classes in yoga that's quite popular these days. And I'm noticing, there's a lot in LA, especially because this is where I live, but there's a lot of popularity and emphasis towards very fitness oriented classes. That's yoga hybrid.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking around, and all the full-time yoga teachers that I know, most of them all teach something besides yoga or some kind of hybrid classes. So now I feel like it's maybe becoming difficult. I could be wrong, but from what I'm seeing, to just teach yoga and be the full-time job for you. And I don't know if you have noticed or seen anything similar to that in Chicago or San Francisco.
I haven't seen it so much in Chicago. It doesn't surprise me about LA. To be honest. Because it's a very kind of, I mean, people are very into fitness here too, but LA it's like quick, get it all in one kind of like, what's the new hot thing? How can we, infuse things together? And that just like does not interest me at all. And I also think because of things like that, what has happened is the quality of people's practices has really suffered because there are no fundamental yoga classes. There's no basics. It's just like, how many postures can we do at one time and do squats? And it's just like, what are we doing here? Again, I'm not hating on anyone's thing. If that works for you, it works for you. It's just like not what I'm interested in at all. And I do share that with my students. I'm like, just come and just practice yoga. This is all you need. You don't need to look at your iWatch of how many calories you're burning and what the next workout is or what the next move is. Just especially right now. And this has kind of been a theme of my class in the past couple months. The world is so fucking insane right now. So insane. Politically insane, financially insane. There's so much stress. There's so much anxiety. People need breath and pause more than ever. More than ever. And I do believe that even in vinyasa yoga, at least where I am right now in my teaching, I want to slow things down. I don't want to add 1,000 things in one class. I want to keep it simple. I want to hopefully do it so it regulates people's nervous system. And, I have no interest in those hybrid classes. It's interesting that you're saying that almost every big teacher there teaches another format. I teach water aerobics every week, but that's just because I love water aerobics, but not because I have to teach it. So that's really interesting. Really interesting. So are you saying, I'm just interested now, in LA, everyone teaches some kind of hybrid yoga class?
Well, I think what's becoming popular is just yoga. I don't want to say just, but yoga studio that just used to offer yoga classes has kind of disappeared. And a lot of places are fitness and yoga classes, or
I would agree. I would agree with you. Yes, a lot of studios in Chicago are doing the same thing, adding Pilates, adding a bar class, adding a weight class. Yeah, I have seen way more than that. I actually don't work at any place that just offers yoga classes. I'm glad I clarified that.
Wait, really?
Yes. Yoga View offers weight training and Pilates now. CAC.
I didn't know that.
And Zen.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And it seems like in what I'm seeing in LA, it's a lot of studios kind of to survive kind of have to offer more fitness-oriented classes on their schedule, whether it's a hybrid or fitness classes on its own, to almost seems like to be able to survive now. I don't really know that many just yoga studio anymore here.
Well, I think it's interesting, though, because also with the popularity of ClassPass, where people wanted many different modalities, and that's why people turned to ClassPass. Now, if yoga studios can adapt and follow this sort of thing, and offer it all under one roof, then it is maybe.
I just got 5 ideas for reels, Giana. I just got 5 ideas for reels. I'm keep them going, baby.
Write them down. But you know what? Before I moved to San Francisco, I was debating whether or not I wanted to move to LA or San Francisco. And one of the reasons that There's a lot of reasons why I didn't choose LA, but one of them was that I thought it would be a lot harder to make it as a yoga teacher. And at this point, after pandemic, like the cost of living is like very similar between the two. Like whereas San Francisco used to be so much more, it definitely, a lot of people fled and prices have lowered a little bit. I felt like it would be really fitnessy and I would have to drive a lot between studios. I also didn't think I'd get my foot in the door as fast as I have in San Francisco. And yeah, so this element that you're talking about is one of the reasons that I felt, I guess, discouraged about LA. And really, I felt like I just had more resonance with San Francisco, and a lot of the studios here felt more like, oh, this is my vibe. You know, I felt at home at some of the studios.
Wouldn't you say, Giana, also that like San Francisco is such a major kind of mecca for Western yoga, and like there still are a lot of studios that are just yoga studios in San Francisco?
Oh, for sure. And there's some hybrids too. I feel like there's a big dichotomy. There's I was actually just talking about this with a yoga teacher friend out here, but like a lot of the same teachers that teach at like the well-known studios in San Francisco that are purely yoga studios, they all teach it, like all of them. It's like copy paste on all these schedules. And then there's like a whole world of teachers that teach at the more like fitnessy place, like the Core Powery and, you know, even the independent versions of such. That like one world doesn't really know about the other world. It's like, oh, these are just the yoga teachers, and these are like the fitnessy yoga teachers. And it's really interesting that exists here. But and I might be making a generalization, but it's something that I've observed. And I know it's also something that studios are trying to crack down on. Like they don't want this like copy paste from one studio to the other, even if they're separated by miles. They want a little bit more exclusivity of like, I just want this big name teacher here and only here. And so I know that becomes a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic, which is if you want, like if someone said to me, Bradshaw, you have to exclusively teach here, but I'm going to pay you $250 a class. Okay, where's the contract? But like a lot of these studios are like, we want you to just teach here, but we can only pay you X amount. And it's like, what? Like that makes no logical sense at all.
It doesn't make sense for the full-time teachers because we have to work at multiple locations. We have
to make a living.
Find different sources of income. And if you get stuck at one, usually those kind of studio can't give you enough classes to make enough to live, you know? There's some studio that, I don't know if you heard of this in Chicago or San Francisco, but they make you sign a contract that says you can't run your own retreat because it's going to become conflict of interest of the retreat they run. Not even just like you can't advertise it in the class, but they'll say you're not allowed to.
I would never work there.
I would never work there, no. We've worked at places that don't allow us to advertise or mention it, and that has been a really big struggle for us. But I think saying you can't do it, that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
A complete, that is so dumb. And if you are like looking to get into retreats and you sign that contract, that is a really naive decision. I would never, ever do that.
Yeah. Here's the thing though, like someone who wants to come to my retreat and for me is not going to sign up for the studio's retreat if I'm not there, and vice versa. Like whoever's leading the studio retreat, people are going to sign up for them. And then of course there's many other layers to factor in, like location and price and so on. But I don't think people at the local level are choosing a retreat just purely because it's a retreat. I think sometimes when you shop retreats online, it doesn't matter who the teacher is. Like I see these websites like
book retreats.
Retreats, things like that. And people are just like looking for like a destination-based thing with like some sort of healing modality. I think the teacher becomes less important. But on the local level, it's like your community wants to be a student of a certain person. And so I don't really see it as direct competition.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have a question because especially talking about what Bradshaw, you said about you teach slower, you don't tie all these poses in and you teach in a way that feels very authentic to you. And also with Giana, who just moved to San Francisco, how do you kind of tackle with what's popular that maybe you feel like studio want you to teach, or what's you feel like students want, and then also trying to stay true to your teaching of what you feel like is authentic for you to offer. If you feel like those are slightly different, maybe it's not what people want, it's not what's going to be popular or fill the class.
I often think that the average yoga student doesn't know what they need.
Or even what they want.
Straight up. So I have confidence, 100% confidence that what I'm providing is a solid class and that people will enjoy it. And I don't try to have the other voices in my head or like in the periphery of managing people's expectations of what I think they want ever dictate how I teach. Ever. I think I have in the past. I think I'm more stepping into this now as I've been teaching for a while. But I know my classes are solid. I know people come back. And I think that the best thing that you can do as a yoga teacher is not what everyone else is doing. If you want to create some kind of lane for yourself, the only thing that you can do is be authentic to what you like in a class and what brings you joy and what inspires you. Because just reading from a format of what a studio would want you to teach. And again, I know that there are a lot of places out there that require you to do that. My advice for you there would be like, how can you weave your own style into that format? I'm lucky enough to not have to teach it anywhere where there's a format. And at this point in my career, I never would.
You know, for me, I'm there. I have two different experiences. In Chicago, when I was teaching there and I taught there for a long time, I did feel like sometimes when I was having like a bad day or something and I taught a class, I noticed that I would teach like a really hard class. It was just something that happened. It was like a really powerful class. And it would happen when I was just like in like, this mood where I just like came in, like, I don't know. But I'd get so many compliments and the people would be like, I love that class. But it was different than how I normally taught. Like I definitely saw this like mood alignment thing. And then I got in my head a little bit of like, oh, people are really complimentary when I like kick their asses. And so I had this internal conflict of like, do I start doing that all the time? And do I just to please the students? And then I go back to what Bradshaw was saying. And it's like, they don't really know what they need because it might have been a hard kick-ass class, but I can guarantee you that they weren't doing it with integrity and alignment. They were probably struggling through it. I probably wasn't really seeing them. Like they don't really know. They don't really know what they need or want. And I think though, as long as you get them moving, get them breathing, and get them out of their heads, like those three like basic things, and you can teach with, you know, integrity and confidence, all the things, like I do consider that a solid class. And I also consider a solid class when you're able to like weave in your personality and be authentic. And so on that note, moving here, I had such imposter syndrome because I don't feel that pressure anymore at all, but I'm teaching at studios that are very bhakti oriented. And I'm like, oh God, I'm not a bhakti teacher. Are they going to resonate with me? Because this is how I teach. And like part of me was like, should I like start, you know, giving these spiritual dharma talks? And should I start? And I've asked myself all these questions while I'm trying to like, you know, be the new girl, fit in. And I think Bradshaw and I had many conversations about it. And ultimately, you know, it comes back to the same thing. It's like, I just have to be myself and the people who resonate will find me. And it might, you know, my student base might ebb and flow as I start to settle in. But I do think eventually, you know, my class numbers will grow and there is an audience for me out there.
I do think that when you're talking about like, I just want to clear something up too. Like if I'm teaching a vinyasa class, I have to teach a vinyasa class. You can't be like, well, I'm not into vinyasa and I just want to teach this style. You can't do that.
That's
you have
the
to
worst.
The style. You have to teach the style that's being offered. Like you can't, but like you don't have to prescribe to like how it has to be taught or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's good. You have to teach the format you're assigned.
Yeah. I like what you said. Maybe your class is different from what other teachers are teaching. And that can be a positive thing. Like you are different. People want to come take something different from you. I've been thinking a lot about music or no music in my class. And I'm kind of trying to slowly take music out of my classes. And certain locations, I feel a little bit more challenge of like there's more internal pressure I feel versus other locations that I teach. And yeah, definitely somebody have also said, well, maybe you not playing music will make you different from other teachers, and people would appreciate that, or the one that who appreciate will find your class.
I will tell you, if there's one advice that if there's any advice I can give you, is like, you will never be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And not everyone that takes your class is going to like you. And that is a hard reality. It was a hard pill for me to swallow for many, many years, as Giana and I both have people pleasing tendencies in different ways. But like, I want people to like me. So do you. We all do. We would be lying if we didn't. But the truer you are to yourself, your people will find you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And that it may be a rocky start, but like over time, it will happen.
For a short little anecdote, a style I do really like to teach is restorative yoga, aside from vinyasa. And when I teach restorative, I never have music in it. And the studio I was teaching at had a restorative every single night at the same time, but it rotated through teachers. So I only taught one day a week, and the other teachers, taught the other days of the week. And I was the only one who taught without music. I was the only one who taught with 1,000 props. I trained with Judith Hansen-Lassiter, so I teach in that style. I ring the bells between postures and whatever. And it was different. I was the only one, like one out of, I think it was 6 times a week, 1 out of 6 that did it this way. And people would try my class and be like, oh, it's not like the other teachers. And some would love it and some wouldn't. And that was hard to like grapple with for the first like few months of teaching it. But then eventually my class numbers, not to brag, but they were the highest for a while. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, well, these people found me and it was consistent. They knew what they were getting every week. And I think you'll have a similar experience. It'll be a journey, but you'll get there.
It's very easy to get caught up in like what other people are doing. And sometimes you literally just, as a teacher, have to put your blinders on and sometimes close your eyes and be like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And not let all of that stuff in your periphery, that mess, like take you out of what you should be doing.
And I'd like to think that like everything we do as yoga teachers is intentional. And so, whether sharing that intent is important or not, like for me, it was sort of important to let people know, because they have a hard time being with themselves in silence, to let them know why there is no music, especially in the beginning. But this can go for anything that you're doing. Like I try to share the intention.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I love that, sharing the intention, and also, just do what feels in alignment with your teaching. I also took Judith's restorative training, so she's an amazing teacher.
She's another firecracker.
She is, and she's full of amazing golden nuggets, but she's also definitely a firecracker.
Yeah, the Annie Carpenter and Judith thing, I was like, oh, 2 firecrackers here. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
And even with Jason, when he one time said, because I've taken his training too, said that if you don't have anything to say as your Dharma talk, like you don't have to say anything. Don't say anything. Just teach a really good asana class. Yeah. You don't have to give Dharma talk. And I remember hearing that when I was a newer teacher. And I was like, that's so true, because I used to feel like I had to. And it comes out inauthentic when you feel like you have to, when you don't have anything to say. So that's why was such a great advice. And Annie have said that before too. And it's like, you don't have to have this inspirational Dharma talk. You can just teach a really good asana class, and that can be amazing class. But I do want to be respectful of your time, so please tell the listeners like how they can find you, or is there anything upcoming that you want to share with the listeners, of like anything they can come find you or join you in any way?
Yeah, we have kayayogaschool.com, Kaya Yoga School on Instagram, or that's where you can find all of our content from Giana and I. Giana and I lead trainings all over the world. We are going to Starve Rock in Illinois. We're going to Italy in August. We're leading a teachers retreat in March in Nicaragua just for yoga teachers. And what else?
And we have our podcast, The Funny Thing About Yoga. So you can stream that Yeah, you can stream that wherever you listen to podcasts. So we're doing all the things. And I think probably the most relevant for your audience here would be our yoga teachers retreat. So for anyone who is teaching, whether it's full-time or part-time, if you want to build community, if you want to get CEUs and brush up on your sequencing, your anatomy, and learn some business tips, this is going to be a great experience. And I think also a way to just take a break, recover, take a week to get out of your schedule and recover from maybe very mild burnout. Yeah.
No, and I
Looping
heard
it.
that you two are running the teachers retreat. That sounded amazing. So anyone listening who want to check out their teachers retreat or even just your podcast is so fun to listen to. So thank you so much for your time, for being here and sharing stories and sharing some great advice and tips for yoga teachers. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully I can come take your class in person someday.
Would love that.
We would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode. Really want to thank Giana and Bradshaw for coming on and letting me interview them for this full-time yoga teacher podcast. I had a really good time talking to them, and they shared a lot of great conversation. And I know they are running a retreat for yoga teachers in Nicaragua in 2026, as well as they have amazing retreats all over the world. They lead teacher trainings, they lead local retreats, workshop trainings. So I'm going to link their websites and Instagram on the show notes. So please go follow them and maybe check out some of their offerings. So that's it for me today. Like I said, I have one room open in my upcoming Nicaragua yoga retreat in July, as well as I'm teaching accessible yoga teacher training. It will be 2 Saturdays in August. So I'll leave this link to the trainings on the show notes as well. If you're interested and have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, you can always leave me 5 stars or reviews or subscribe or whatever you can do on whatever platform you're listening to. That would mean so much to me. But what would mean the world to me is if you can share this podcast with somebody you know, and that will really help the show out so much. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Reika Yoga or message me through my website, www.reikayoga.com, to reach out to me, ask me questions, or give me feedback. I really love to connect with the listeners from around the world. And I think that's it for me. So I hope you have a great rest of your day and speak to you next week.